Hello everyone, it's indeed inspiring to see you back again, and we are here in this Business Analyst series. We are going to help you with step-by-step journey to learn and develop your skills as a business analyst. Here, you will learn a lot about how to interact with client, how to capture the user stories, how to document them and produce BRDs and SRS, how you can do the data modeling part, UML modeling, software methodologies, agile, scrum and DevOps, so many and so much things to learn. So I insist you to go through this particular series and get an advantage on business analyst.
So, business analysis is a discipline that involves identification, understanding, and analysis of business needs and problems. It is a process of evaluating an organization's process, systems, and strategies to propose practical solutions for improvement and optimization. Business analysts are professionals responsible for conducting this analysis and recommending changes to enhance. Yeah, let me just let the people in here to enhance business performance and achieve specific objectives. Let us again go through the points, key activities which are involved: gathering requirements, analyzing data, modeling and documentation, evaluating solutions, collaborating with stakeholders, facilitating communication, and supporting implementation. Now, let us move ahead and try to discuss roles and responsibilities also. And this will give us the whole insight that what a business analyst needs to do every day, or basically maybe in a cycle in a week's time. So we'll understand this thing. So the role of business analyst is essential in bridging the gap between business needs and technical solutions. This is what we have already discussed, and we understand this in a better manner now. Business analysts play a crucial role in various projects, particularly in software development process and improvement initiatives. That's fine. Now, the first thing, requirement elicitation and analysis. So business analysts are responsible for gathering, understanding, and documenting business requirements from the stakeholders. We again had a discussion on it. So I will be helping you out with the kind of documentation a business analyst needs to do. So we had a discussion where we were understanding that the first thing is to understand the needs and problems, and they need to be documented. So this particular point is about that. We need to document it, and documentation can be done in the form of BRDs, that is business requirement documents, and it can be done in the form of functional requirement documents, or we can say software requirement specifications, or maybe system requirement specifications. It depends like what kind of project we are doing. Based on that particular project, that document name can differ a bit, but they are moreover functional requirements. So yes, so create clear and concise documentation such as BRDs or functional specifications, use cases, process flows to communicate the requirements effectively. So we will go through the business requirement documents and functional specifications, or SRS, in some time. Let us understand use cases and process flows. So use cases, if you see, they are basically, once we discuss with a customer, then one particular functionality, and that that has something to do with the user. Let's say, let me just draw and try to explain that. So here, this is our system. Let's assume this box is our system, and we are creating a software, and the first feature is login and registration. From login and registration also, login is the first feature. The user needs to log in. Okay, so this will be a use case, and diagrammatically how it will be represented, I'll show you. And we will have this understanding of diagrammatic language, which is called as unified modeling language. So how that can be represented is, so I will create a use case over here. This is a use case, and this use case is login use case. So I'll just write login. Now, this use case depends on like few users. Who would be the users? So here we can draw the users. We call them as actors in this particular diagram. So This is an actor, and this particular actor, consider it as one of the users. Let me have another user. This is another user. Let's have it here. So this first user is admin. So normally admin has got more access on the system, and this particular user is let's say customer. So customer is trying to access the website, so customer needs to log in. So this arrow represents there is an association between that customer user and the use case login. So login is the use case, and customer is basically the actor who would like to make use of login functionality. And now we need to be very clear that when customer is trying to log in, what is going to happen? Customer is trying will put the username and password, so that username and password needs to get authenticated. So how will they get authenticated? We will have again, one more use case here, which will be for authentication itself. So this use case is for authentication. So now understand what is happening. Now this login is going to get, okay, authentication from here. Okay. So login is going to get authentication. And this is normally a dashed line which we represent. Okay. So customer is going to do login, but login is going to get authenticated first. And this authentication mechanism is actually managed by the admin. So let me bring it here so that the representation is better. So it is in the hands of admin that whether to verify or not. So this is an example of use case. Okay. Diagrammatically, I have shown you. So one feature, one functionality we have represented as a use case over here. Okay. So we need to have a detailed discussion, understand the use cases, and document them. We have to put them in the document. We were creating one project, and that time the client shared 4 screenshots with us. Okay, 4 screenshots. And then verbally they told that we want integration with the database server, and the screenshots which we have shared, they show the kind of data which we have. So they were just having some rows mentioning the column names. So these are the columns which we have in the data, and we want to store that data into a database. Now understand, 4 screenshots and a requirement shared verbally in this particular manner. So if we would have said yes to this particular requirement, then it would have been a big, a big mistake from our side, and it would have been like a trap because, like nothing is clear because the UI design is not clear, the components on the UI design they are not clear, so nothing was clear. It is not clear that from where the data is going to come and where the servers are there, where the data needs to be loaded. Is this the only requirement or is there some other scope as well? Nothing was discussed. Okay. So if we would have said yes to that particular requirement, that would have been one of the biggest mistake. So we basically asked the client that we need some time with the CTO, the technical officer from your side, so that we can have a discussion and we can develop a requirement specification document. And believe me, from another city, they came to us, and they the person sat with us for the whole day, 4 or 5 hours. He realized that indeed it is a requirement basically to discuss and document it before we actually start working. So understand, sometimes client doesn't feel the necessity of the documentation, but it is the role of the business analyst to ensure that the documentation is clear, concise, and proper. And like it took us almost 1.5 weeks to have consistent discussion alternate days and create almost a 40-page first requirement documentation, first documentation. And then we started to implement that application. It was a software application. So, so Therefore, this is an important and crucial part, documentation. Use cases are a better way of representing any information in the form of diagrams and then adding up some description. Then we have process flows. So process flows can be better described in the form of flow charts or activity diagram. Now, flow charts and activity diagrams are again very simple tools to work with, and I'll show you something. For example, let's basically talk about this login activity itself because this is the one of the simplest example we have. So in this particular case, what is going to happen? Login activity. So in login activity, if you see, the first thing is, let's say, open the browser browser. Okay. Then second step would be open, let's say, Gmail. Third step would be after opening Gmail, the next step would be enter user and password. Now the next step doesn't is not visible to us. It is something which happens inside only. It is not visible to us. And what is that step? That step is authentication. Authentication happens. Authentication itself has got some steps. So it decrypts the PWD, matches with the PWD in DB database, shares yes or no. Okay, so share yes or no because ultimately we need the final output. So if it is yes, if yes, else false. Okay, so this is how it would be. Okay, this is the flow. This is the whole flow. Now, this can be represented in the form of a diagram. Okay, so how that diagram can be? That diagram could be represented in the form of an activity. Okay, now let me draw that activity diagram or a flow chart. Okay, as of now, I'll not stick to terminologies much. When we will learn UML, I'll explain. So here I need to have, so normally, let's have a flow chart only. Otherwise, we need to have it, it cannot be a perfect square, rectangle, if you want to show an activity. So the first activity is open the browser. So starting with that, now this symbol represents start. So we are just starting now. START, start. Then after that, this we will take as an activity. So the first activity we have is open the browser. Open the browser is first activity. And after that, the second activity we have is, and there is no basically constraint for the second activity, and it is open gmail.com. Like no condition, nothing. Simply open gmail.com. Okay, open gmail.com. This is how. Okay, so let me put these two things. Okay, fine. Now, what next? Next would be enter username and password. So that will also be very much similar. Nothing, no diversions. User and PWD password. Now, some other thing will happen, like something we would like to see. So now what will happen? Authentication. Okay, so authentication will take it to the different direction. Let's keep it here and authentication. Okay, so from here it goes for authentication. Now authentication is going to check match in the database. Okay, so here authentication decrypts the password and matches with the password in the database. So here we'll have decryption of password, and after that the last would be decryption of password and then matching in the DB. So we will have database somewhere. So let's assume this is a database, and now authentication is going to happen from here. The authentication is going to happen. Okay, so it will check the DB. get a response. Okay. Hmm. Now, if yes, then login successful, else false. So my end state here is end goal is that login should be successful, and that can be represented like this. Hmm. So this is last. Stop, activity will stop. So if it is yes from here, okay, then yeah. So let me draw an arrow over here so that it becomes very clear. This is for yes. And if it would have been no, then again, you would need to put the password, username and password. Okay, let me just add yes and no. Yes and no. That's it. Okay, this much is there. So this is a diagram and some more things I'll have to add. Like here I should draw this so that it shows the arrow. Okay, that how does it move? Fine. Here also, here also. Okay, and from here it went to that place, then again and again this way. And wherever needed, authentication, here, done. Okay, so this is an activity. Okay, so this kind of a document we need to have. Okay, this kind of a diagram we need to have in the document. Okay, let us go back. Yes. So they create clear, concise documentation such as business requirement documents, functional specifications, use cases, and process flows to communicate the requirements effectively to development teams and other stakeholders. Now, requirement management. This is another important aspect. Requirement management is, I'll give the same example of the same client. So once we had completed the documentation, the first documentation in about around 15 days time, 2 weeks time, we started to develop that application. The developers started to work on their requirement. Testing team was there. Mobile development team was different. Software development team was different. They started to work on it. Okay. Now, after about 10 to 15 days, there was a first sprint, and in the first sprint, we had to basically show them the development. So we started to explain them whatever we had developed. They were able to look at the UI, and there were discussions on themes and everything. They were able to see the UI of the mobile application. And now, after around 1 month's time, when things were actually in place, we were able to see some operations being done. They started to demand. Okay, what was the demand? I'll give you example. So let's say there is a in the design there is a button which is placed over here. Okay, so here is a button, and let's say there are some more components over this particular side. Some more components. Okay, so now here they said, okay, this button doesn't look good over here, so let's remove it from here and put it somewhere else. Probably we can put it over here. Okay, so that button would come here. These three can be represented in the form of some star symbols. Okay, we said fine. Okay, so this is very small and basic thing. Okay, sometimes some process is being a bit customized. So when a process is being a bit customized, then again it's a challenge. Okay, to implement that into a software. So what we need to do here as a business analyst, we need to understand that first thing, what is the change which is required? Okay, so requirement management, what is the change which is required? Is this particular change good enough? and relevant enough to be added in the existing work? Or should we consider this particular change as a new requirement and a new specification, and we should communicate with the client and we should help them to understand that this is a major change and it cannot be incorporated into this particular release because it will hamper the all timelines we have planned. So can we do it in the next release? Else it is very much urgent important, then again have a new document mentioning that particular modification or update, and then you integrate that as a new requirement and start working on it. You can do this way. Okay. So whenever requirements are coming, firstly, we need to ensure that we gain the whole insight at the beginning of the project, at the start of the project. But by any chance, if there is a change, which normally happens, in that particular case, you need to understand whether the requirement or the kind of specification which is being discussed with the client is having very, very, very low value or having very high value. So accordingly, you can decide if it is having very low value, accordingly, you can decide if it is having very high value, accordingly, you can decide. Okay, let me clear the screen. Okay, the next point is stakeholder management. So all the stakeholders, your clients, your development team, and apart from that, if you see the team, there is a developers, testers, then at the end there are deployment team who basically deploys the application. Once everything is done, then the end customer user is there, like our clients' customers, users are there. So there is a testing which is called as UAT, user acceptance testing, which happens at the end. Once everything is over, then we basically go for that. So stakeholder management is another important area where the BAs interact with business users, project managers, developers, and testers, everyone, and create a liaison between them. Next, roles and responsibility, solution assessment and validation. This is very important. Sometimes what happens, let's say you got engaged into the initial discussion, you were able to very well document the requirement also, but when the development actually started, you could not manage to interact with the developers. Okay. So this is a very big challenge that we need to do the assessment in between, okay, of the application of the project which is going on, and we need to validate as per the document prepared and as per the development done. We need to validate whether the team is developing in right direction or not. So this is important. But if this is skipped and at the end we are trying to check, we will see that altogether we have created something else because we were not referring to the software requirement specifications. Okay, data analysis. We had a discussion on business analysis basically, or business analytics. So it is similar. We also need to identify trends, patterns, insights, and that will support in decision making and business improvement. Then we have process modeling and process improvement. So if you have a goal and you want to achieve it, your goal is nothing is actually nothing without a process. If you don't have a process to achieve that particular goal, your goal is just a goal, it's static, nothing is going to happen. Very similar way in a business, processes are very crucial. If you want to achieve something but you don't have a process, so probably you'll fail achieving it, or the magnitude you can put, that won't be very high. So therefore, process is very important, and process modeling basically means creating and making and developing the processes and then optimizing them, improving them so that they work in better manner. Okay. Now, next thing, quality assurance and testing support. So if you see that all these things the BA alone cannot do, and therefore BA needs to interact with the testing team and get the quality checks done from them, and whatever help they require from you, you provide it to them. That is how it happens. So quality assurance and testing is another area. Then risk assessment and project planning. Normally, many people, they leave the risk assessment part, especially the small organizations. They leave it. But we cannot leave the risk assessment part. It is very crucial, very important. We cannot leave it. Rarely this happens, I understand. But let's say if it happened, then what will? So that will be a great loss of reputation, loss of data, loss of a lot of customers. Okay, so risk assessment again, and a very important aspect. Then project planning, because if planning is not done, then how to get to know that what needs to be done at which point of time. Okay, so BAs often contribute project planning, including estimating efforts and resource required for requirements analysis, management services. Last few points are domain knowledge. As soon as BA works with a particular domain, eventually develops the knowledge of that particular domain. Business case development, also basically it is responsibility of BA to come up with new business cases for new projects or new initiatives. Okay, so this was a brief about the roles and responsibilities of a BA.
If you like this video, please do share it with your friends and those who need it. And don't forget to press the bell icon and also subscribe to our channel so that you can get all the videos notifications readily in your account.